welcome back to B-Side Banter. This is episode 16, and I'm here with Giggens, and you can find him on Instagram, YouTube, and I just found out he also has TikTok, so check him out everywhere. And a familiar face to some people, I'm sure, people stuff with Needle Drop, Anthony Fantano, his various channels. I know he has a couple. I can't remember all the names, but I'm gonna kick it to you, and yeah, just explain a little bit about what you do and whatever else you want to say.
Yeah, I'm Giggins. I do album review content on YouTube and Instagram and a little bit on TikTok there. I'm a full-time content creator. I work full-time with the Needle Drop with Anthony. I edit videos with him. I make videos with him. Sometimes I'm in videos with him. I do
Mhm.
reviews on his channel as well.
Yeah.
I'm also a co-manager of a record store, which I
Oh,
absolutely
nice.
love that job too. So music is my entire life, and I'm the
Mm.
co-author of the official Beach Boys coloring book. I'm known as the
Yeah,
Beach Boys guy on the internet, which is pretty rad.
that's
But I
awesome.
love all sorts of bands from all sorts of eras. But
Mhm.
yeah, no, I like making album reviews that are balanced and they look for the good with what happened with making the record or my thoughts on it. I don't really go down the negative rabbit hole. It's not my thing, and
Mhm.
people have told me that's why they like watching my stuff. So I'll
Yeah.
take it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's kind of
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Do you find that like do you find that a little difficult? Like, not saying that that Fantano is like strictly negative. He can be very positive, but do you find that kind of difficult when you're like, do you feel like you're almost like two different personalities between your kind of channel and when you're doing work with him, or are you kind of the voice of positivity on his stuff? I know a lot of the time when I'm listening to you guys, you are kind of that, but
Yeah, no, it's column A, column B. I mean, we
yeah.
we definitely complement each other, but we also
Mhm.
definitely have different points of view for how to attack something. Where
Yeah.
I'll do a review for him, and he'll be like, "Well, that's great that you love it, but you got to find something negative about it." And I'll be like, "Man, I loved it. Why would I find something negative about it? Like
Yeah.
that's the point of loving something.
Yeah, totally.
I'm not gonna rip apart something I like. Like these are
Yeah.
great cookies. I'm not gonna say they're crap.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, yeah, no, yeah, we're a little bit different, but we have so much in common that it's
Oh,
those
totally.
differences are pretty small. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I don't know. I think your guys' dynamic that you have is really good. I feel like it's a good fit. Um
Well, we've been
so
friends for 20 years, so that'll do
y-
it.
that will do it. That will do it for sure, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
I had no idea that you were a co-manager of a record shop. That's pretty
yeah,
cool. That's amazing.
yeah. It's the coolest damn job in the world, man. Like, sitting
Yeah.
there and playing record guy all day, it's the best. Love it.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's so cool, and that probably helps. Are you selling your own records? You obviously have a huge stash. I'm just joking.
When I do sell stuff, I sell it at the store, yeah,
Yeah.
completely, I'll put little notes in them once in a while, from my collection or something, but,
Oh, that's
um
cool. I like
yeah,
that.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
no,
really cool.
we've been open. It'll be 5 years this summer. We've been open.
Man, that's really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah. That like I don't know, there's just something so cool about a record shop, and I think it's like part of that is for the most part, unless you're hiring, part-time help or like, what I mean, for the most part, like the people that work in a record shop just love music. Like that's just like
you
that's
have
why
to.
they're there. That's why they have it. Because
Yeah,
right now, like records are, even though it's coming back into popularity and like you're seeing sales reflected in records sold again, but still like it's more about like the nostalgia, the collection, like, so it's a little different. You're kind of like music industry adjacent, you know what I mean? Like you're not in the thick of the industry where like it's like kind of cutthroat and weird. It's almost like you're just pandering, or not pandering, but you're just dealing with people that just love music and love records and have an appreciation for great music. So I don't know, I think stores like that are just so cool. It's cool to walk into them and speak to the people that work there, and yeah.
that's exactly it. We like being part of the community and having a place for people to play shows and
Yeah.
a place for people to meet up and learn from each other about bands that they might not have known about and
Hmm.
just hang out and chat and dig through the bins because you never know what you're gonna find. But
Yeah,
yeah, we
totally.
really love. There's three of us that work there. We each have
Okay.
slightly different musical tastes,
Yeah,
so we
that's
all
cool.
kind of help each other out. But
Hmm.
yeah, so when you walk in, you never know what music's gonna play depending on who's working there that day. If it's me, it's
Totally.
like old school stuff or like
Yeah.
current girly pop.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
if my other guys are there, it's like hardcore or it's like weird
Nice.
ambient stuff.
Okay,
Um,
okay. Nice. That's
Yeah,
good. It's
it's
good to
great
have that
working
balance.
there. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did notice, a funny theme, and because you sent me, a couple, like, just lists, your favorite artists, favorite albums, and I did notice a theme where is it a prerequisite that, for a band to be your favorite artist, they have to have "the" at the beginning of their name? I
Typically, yeah.
typically.
And half the members have to not be alive anymore. Yeah,
That's
that's pretty
true,
much
that's
how it
true,
goes,
yeah,
yeah.
I looked at that list, I was like, "That's so funny," like, it's obviously just a coincidence, but it's just
But
funny that all 5 of your favorite bands all have "the" in front of them.
it's funny, I mean, if you ask me that tomorrow, there'd probably be a couple different bands on there
That's
because they
true.
change all the time. But
Yeah,
there's a couple core ones that would always be on there, like the Beatles, the Beach Boys, the Who, that kinda
yeah,
stuff, yeah.
totally. I get that for sure.
Yeah,
Well, we should transition to the Beach Boys because you're the Beach Boys guy, and I don't know how often, other than also, like, your fiance is a Beach Boys fanatic as well.
absolutely.
So obviously, unless I have her on the pod, I don't know how often I'm gonna have, like, somebody that loves the Beach Boys like this on the pod, right? So we gotta talk about this.
Yeah.
So maybe just, like, tell us a little bit about why you love the Beach Boys so much, and, I'm also very interested in the coloring book that you have.
Yeah. No, got into the Beach Boys when I was a little kid, um, through the Chipmunks and,
Mm.
the Muppets on TV doing Kokomo.
Yeah, that's
But,
awesome.
yeah, I'm from that generation, and
Yeah.
we watched, Nickelodeon used to show that music video all the time, the Kermit singing Kokomo and stuff, but,
Mhm. Absolutely.
then they were on TV all the time back then. They were the cheesy dad group, they were on Home
Mm.
Improvement, they were on Full
Mhm.
House, so they
Yep.
were always in
Mhm.
something.
Yeah.
But no, I discovered them through the Chipmunks doing California Girls, and then my brother found my mom's cassette of Endless Summer.
Mm.
That was it. Hearing the real California Girls for the first time blew my mind at like
Yeah.
5 or 4 years old, however old I was. And something about their harmonies and the warm chord combinations and how inventive they were and how soulful they were, but they were poppy and accessible, but there was some
Mhm.
weird stuff happening underneath it all. And then, as I
Yeah.
grew up, I started reading more about their story and just realized how insane their story was and how dark it got for
Mhm.
this group about, singing about sunshine and stuff. Their real stories were horrible and
Mhm.
horrifying. But, yeah, it stuck with me, and then when I was in high school, I got even deeper into them, and that was it. I just went down the rabbit hole, and it's been that way ever since, and,
Mhm.
Jenny, my fiance, who's also a massive Beach Boys fan, she grew up with all the weird stuff when she was a kid from the Beach Boys, which I didn't hear till I was, like, 14, 15 years old, and she
Sure.
knew all the weird stuff when she was a kid, so she was way earlier into that than I was, which is
Yeah,
super
yeah.
cool. But, yeah, no, I started making Beach Boys videos a long time ago online, album reviews, because there weren't any,
Mm.
and I wanted to watch them. So I was like,
Yeah.
"I'll just make
Yeah.
them," you
Yeah.
know?
Sure.
And that's how it started. Like, that's how
That's
my
amazing.
YouTube channel took off, and,
Yeah.
it's led to so many cool things since then,
Mhm.
and working with the Beach Boys social media team for the last, I don't
Mhm.
know, 3 years, 4 years, something like that, has been, an absolute trip to do,
Yeah.
that kind of
That's
stuff, and then
yeah.
yeah.
That's super cool. Yeah, and then you have, like, the coloring book, and then you also were you featured on, like, a documentary of or something like that? Like, I think I was reading somewhere, maybe in, like, your bio or something like that, there was some sort of documentary or movie or something.
Well, I'm in a couple of books. This
Oh, yeah, it
author's
was a
name is
book. You're right. It was a
I'm
book.
in 2 of his books, which
Yeah.
is an absolute honor to be in anything he's ever written, 'cause
Mhm.
he used to write the liner notes to the CDs when I was a kid.
Mm.
Um, but no, I'm in the documentary for the zombies, which is
Oh,
coming
okay.
out pretty
I'm
soon.
mixing up the 2, but yeah, that's
Yeah,
cool.
but yeah, I'm in that one. But yeah, when the team from Fantunes reached out to me about doing the coloring book, and, they were like, "Hey, can you help us out with, like, coming up with picture ideas?" And I was like, "Of
Mm.
course." And
Yeah,
so I would say about 90% of the book are my ideas, and then they
that's
drew
so
them.
cool.
I
Yeah.
started drawing things, and they were like, "No, please stop. We'll draw them." Yeah.
Oh
Um,
gosh.
but yeah, almost everything in that book is my idea, which is mind blowing. And
Mm.
to see my name on the Simon and Schuster website at first, I was like,
Mm.
"Wow, I'm like an author."
Yeah, yeah. That's
Close as
so
it's gonna
cool.
get for now. For now, anyway. I'm working on other
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah, it's
that's
pretty
super
rad.
cool. Yeah,
It's
that's
an honor.
amazing. Can we get, like, a side by side of, like, your version of the picture and then the published version?
I've got a few. Yeah, I've got a few.
That
Yeah.
would be super cool to see. I'm
Yeah,
sure it's great. Like if you tried your hand at drawing it, I'm sure it's not bad. You know what I mean? Like because it's not like you were like, I'll try it, and then you're like drawing stick figures, right? Like which is what I would be doing. Like
I
so.
gave them rough ideas. I didn't do anything super I drew one that was, like, really, really, like, in depth,
Mhm.
and then I just, sketched out the other one super quick, and they were like, "No, this is why we're here. We just want your brain."
Yeah, yeah. The
Yeah.
gentle reminder.
Yes. But they are the team at Fantunes, they're the best. They've done books for Rush and, a
Mm.
bunch of other bands. They're super talented guys.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, that's like and such like a yeah, I guess like such a probably strange experience. Like when you were when it was happening, I'm sure you were like, never in my life would I have imagined that I would be involved in a Beach Boys coloring book. Like it's kind of like a very unique thing that you would never kind of think that would be what you'd be doing, but super cool.
Yeah, that's happened a bunch of times with them, like, between being in the books that David Leaf has written because he's best friends with Brian Wilson,
Mm,
and all the Beach Boys have heard of me through things I've done with promoting things online.
that's so cool.
Um, yeah, it's wild, man, and, like, doing the coloring book, like, there's a picture of Brian Wilson holding the coloring book, looking through it and smiling,
That's
and it's
cool.
like,
That's super cool.
"I
Yeah.
made it, man, like, that's good enough for me." That's
Yeah, that's so cool.
yeah,
That's
it's pretty
amazing.
rad.
You did mention like because I'm not super like obviously know the Beach Boys. I don't think I could say that I've listened to all of their albums. Listened to most of them.
Yeah,
But in terms of story, like their story, I'm not super familiar with it. You said that it gets pretty dark. So
yeah.
that I'm like instantly I'm like, what is it? I'm hooked. So if you could give us like a little bit of Cole's notes, maybe some of like the most intense parts. I don't know. You can pick and choose, but I'd love to hear some of these dark stories.
I mean, starting around 1965, like Brian Wilson did acid for the first time,
Uh
and he
huh.
actually wrote the intro to California Girls based off his LSD
Whoa.
trip.
Yeah. Crazy.
And from there, they started getting deeper. He started getting deeper into drugs, like with Good
Mm,
Vibrations and the Abandoned Smile album. It was
mm,
all just craziness and surrounding himself with people that were cool and hip, and then they weren't going to hang around when things got tough. So it was a lot of
mhm.
heartbreak too. But
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of the guys suffer from depression. I mean, the most famous story that's the dark stuff is Dennis Wilson, the drummer, getting mixed up with Charlie Manson.
Oh. Yeah. I didn't know
Um,
that.
which is I don't talk about that on my channel because it gets talked about so much, and it's
Mm,
like it's the easiest target for like negative
sure.
Beach Boy stuff. So I'm always like, nah,
Sure. Yeah.
sod it.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
that's pretty dark. But yeah, there's lots of drugs. Brian
Mm,
stayed in his bed for like 3 years. I mean, it gets so bad. And then Brian had a doctor that basically robbed him of his life for 10 years and stole him from everything and took
man.
money from him. And it's
Oh,
the
crazy.
and then they sued each other. I mean, the
Mm,
whole thing. It's 40 years of misery behind the scenes. But
man.
man, they had some fun, fun, fun.
Yeah. That's crazy. Like I feel like stuff like that happens so much more than sometimes you you think, and especially then,
Yeah,
like I think it was like the Elton John, like I think I was watching Rocket Man, or I think it's Rocket Man, isn't it, with Taron Egerton?
yeah, yeah,
And like again, another story. Like I just like I haven't dug into a lot of these old, like not older, like musicians that were really famous. You kind of just know they've always existed, but I've
yeah,
never really dug into their stories a whole lot.
yeah.
And just like hearing like an Elton John story that he was taken advantage of by his manager and he was stealing a ton of money from him, and like I'm like that's so crazy. Like we talk about how corrupt the music industry can be today, but like they have to be a lot better at stealing from artists today. They have to do it in a lot like more of a subtle way. Other like, but
Harder.
back then they were just blatantly like taking money. It's crazy,
It was
so
just
crazy.
paperwork, no computers. You can get away with a
Yeah,
lot back then.
that's
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
crazy.
Every band
Wow.
got ripped off. The Beatles did. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, it's so crazy. That's wild. I wouldn't have known that at all. And definitely like you said, you don't suspect that from their music. Like it's not
No,
reflective in their in their music at all. Like
no, not at
so you're
all.
like these guys have just they just surf all day. They're just super happy, they just love life, but it makes sense that that time in the music industry could, was getting really dark for a lot of artists, especially if they were heading down the road of drugs and
Yeah,
yeah, and
only
dealing
one
with
with the
fame
strip.
alone is really tough too. Like just dealing
Well,
with
that
that.
too.
Yeah, so
It's
crazy.
impossible to navigate. It's really hard.
Yeah, totally. I don't want to ask too many questions that you're like, this is always talked about, but
Yeah, ask away, man.
you're
Whatever you
you're
wanna do.
you're a Beatles fan and
Yeah,
you're a Beach Boys fan. A
yeah.
lot of the time when people are talking about, the best of or the most influential, these two groups get pitted against each other. They're like, no, the Beatles are the most influential. And then a lot of people are like, excuse me, have you heard Pet Sounds? The Beach Boys. And so, like, as somebody who loves both of these bands, kind of what's your perspective with this?
I love both, and I think they are both influential, but I would say the Beatles had a longer run of being more in the public eye while they
Mm,
were hot than the Beach Boys
yeah.
did. Um, after Pet Sounds came out, Capitol Records had no faith in that album, and they put out a greatest hits album to make up for it because it went to number 10, which for the Beach Boys was like commercial death at that point.
Mm,
It's an amazing placement. Number 10. I would love to
yeah.
have a number 10 album. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like come on. And after that greatest hits album came out, Good Vibrations came out, which went to number
Mm,
1, which was a
mm-hmm,
massive hit, influenced a million bands. And that's when Brian started to work on the Smile album, and which never came out. It never got
mm,
finished. It came out 40 years later.
yeah.
But they got left in the dust. The rest of the world moved on, and they didn't. Brian retreated, and he got fed up with it. He got tired and burnt out. And he stayed with the band for a few years, of course, making albums throughout the rest of the 60s. But they lost so many fans. They had to cancel tours because of low attendance. They were huge in
Wow.
Europe, but in
Yeah.
America, they
Hmm.
couldn't sell out, the local baseball field. No one
Hmm.
wanted to see them.
Yeah.
So whereas with the Beatles, they only ever went up that ladder. They
Yeah.
very rarely ever had a misstep. I think like Strawberry Fields or what song am I thinking of? One of their songs didn't hit the top 10 or hit number 2 or something. And it
Mm.
was like, "Oh god, the Beatles are over."
Are they
Um,
declining? Yeah.
and this is it. This is the end of the Beatles.
Yeah.
Like they didn't have a quote unquote unpopular period. They
Mm.
were always popular, whereas the Beach Boys did. And they didn't have a popular period again until the mid 70s when the Endless Summer Greatest Hits album came out and they became an oldies act.
Mm.
So their new albums were never as popular as the ones from the 60s.
Sure.
So they're influential for different reasons, but in terms of popularity, the Beatles had nonstop popularity, whereas the Beach
Yeah.
Boys definitely had a break, if you will.
Mm.
Unfair advantage in the Beatles' court, but also, that's how record companies will do that to you. They'll screw you over, and
Yeah.
they're the ones who have the marketing money. And at the end of the
Yeah.
day, that's who gets to see your stuff is because of their marketing people. So it's
Hmm.
rough.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
So
Yeah.
answer your question.
Yeah. No, that's great. I definitely think like I don't know. It's such an interesting debate. Like when I see this kind of pop up. I think I was talking to Patrick. I forget his last name, but from Patrick's Music Stories or something. I don't know if you've seen him
Mhm.
on like socials, but I was
TikTok.
talking to him
Yeah.
and I asked him a question about like who he thought because he's always just his whole thing is basically music history, putting it into
Yeah.
kind of 60-second chunks for social media. And so I asked him like, who do you think are the five most influential bands or artists of all time? And obviously the Beatles were there. When I posted that clip, it was so like so much like, well, first of all, as you can assume, everybody's like the Beatles are overrated. Like Beatles are overrated, like which
Come on.
that's like the it's low
It's
hanging fruit. Like everybody says that, right?
yeah,
But
get off.
then came the Beach Boys fans that were like Beach Boys were better, and like there were so many people that like literally went back and forth in the comments that were just go like Beach Boys versus Beatles, and I was like, this is so crazy. I didn't think that this was such an like like a divisive conversation. Um,
Oh yeah.
I obviously they're both similar bands and at similar times, so I guess it makes sense that you would have sides, but I don't know. I was shocked. I was pretty surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I think the conversation comes up because in the mid '60s they were competing against each other.
Mm,
You know, the Beatles would put out Rubber Soul, Beach Boys would put out Pet Sounds. And
yeah.
then once that came out, the Beatles went, "Oh, whoa, okay," and then did Sergeant Pepper. So it was a back and
Mm,
forth for years. So, they were inspired by each other, but it was always a friendly competition.
yeah.
And it's impossible to say one's better than the other. And come
Yeah.
on, man, one of the best, two of the best bands of all time. Like, come
That's
on,
true. Yeah, absolutely.
possible.
It's impossible to say, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Do you think that that Pet Sounds, or whichever you think is the best Beatles or Beach Boys album, do you think that the Beach Boys have a better best album, or the Beatles have a better best album?
Um, that's hard to answer because like my gut instinct is to like think of their other albums and their discography like as their
Mm,
cohesive whole body of work.
sure.
Um, Picking out just one album seems impossible, but um, yeah, man, I suck at this game because like
Hey, don't worry
how
about
the hell can you say, "Oh, Pet Sounds is better than Sergeant Pepper"? Sergeant Pepper's better than Pet Sounds. Like
it.
they exist for two different purposes.
Exactly. Yeah,
Pet
totally.
Sounds is the is the inner monologue of a 23-year-old guy figuring out his way in the world and understanding
Mm,
if the world wants him there and growing up and relationships and how he fits in with his friends and his family and being a celebrity. Sergeant Pepper's about a bunch of kooky random characters.
yeah, yeah,
It's like
yeah, yeah.
what
Totally
means more?
different. Yeah,
What means more? So it's
for
dependent
sure.
upon who's listening to what at what time, but
Mhm.
no, I can't pit them next to each other because they're if you took, like, another emotional album paired up against Pet Sounds, then you can compare
Sure.
emotions. But
Yeah.
if you were gonna compare, like, this stuff from, like, Ray Davies was writing, like, with the Kinks,
Mhm.
all the character songs, and then pair that with the Sergeant Pepper, that makes sense, but no, they're
Yeah.
two different worlds, man. It's just I don't know, what about you? What would you say? What would you pick out of those 2 albums?
It's that I would probably it and it's so tough too because it's like you can't divide um your like feelings what you've experienced with an album from that. I mean, that's the whole point of music and art is
Yeah.
it you relate to something because it makes you feel something. And so the other side of it is like I would probably pick Sergeant Pepper, but that's just because of the first time I heard it and what I experienced. And then there's nostalgia wrapped into that.
Yep.
There's so many things wrapped into that, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's a great album. If I were to look at the Rolling Stones like top 500 albums, they say Pet Sounds is better, but like I don't know, like who's the writer? How did they experience Pet Sounds? I think it is a really tough conversation, but social media and the trolls on social media, they demand an answer, so we have to answer them, right? Like this is not our responsibility.
Alright, so between Pet Sounds and Sergeant Pepper, Odyssey and Oracle is the choice. That's the answer by the Zombie. That's your answer.
Okay,
There you go.
okay, so that's better.
Yeah.
You know what? I never That's that curveball out of left field. I never would have thought would even come into play.
Or if not that one, the Kinks of the Village Green Preservation Society. Throw that one in there too.
Okay,
There.
okay. Hey, we're really messing people up now. People are really gonna be upset. Oh gosh, yeah.
But
I guess I'm just so surprised at how this far removed from their greatness, when they were, at their peak, people are still so divided by it, and it's just funny to me
yeah,
because I'm like, what? Like, I don't get this. Um, I guess it's kind of a fun conversation to have, but at the same time, it's like you said, how do you answer that question? It's an impossible question.
I mean, good art will always find an audience. It doesn't matter when it comes out or how it came out, and people
Exactly.
will always be divisive or decisive on it because opinions are strong. And like you said, nostalgia plays a huge part in it. And,
Yeah.
where you were in your life when an album helps you out plays a big part of
Mhm.
it too. So,
Yeah,
I can talk
absolutely.
about being 17 and
Yeah.
hearing I just wasn't made for these times and being like, that's the album for me. And
Yeah.
then I can remember being 6 hearing Sergeant Pepper being like, what is this? And then open the gatefold, like, what? Who are the what? They have mustaches, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's both things. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and if I were to go based on your 10 favorite albums that you gave me, you don't even have Pet Sounds on here. You have Friends, so you know what I mean?
Well, Pet Sounds is S tier. It's always gonna be there. It's a
Yeah,
given. Pet
yeah,
Sounds is a given. I think if you say that's your favorite album, that's cool. But
yeah,
there's others. Like Pet Sounds
yeah.
will always be the end all
Mhm.
be all best thing Brian ever did.
Yeah,
Um,
it's almost like if you say Pet Sounds is your favorite album, it's almost like you can hear the 12-year-olds coming to your comment section saying, "You don't even know them, do you? Like you haven't even listened to them. You're just
yeah,
jumping on the train."
yeah. What else did Rolling Stones list tell you to listen to? Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Oh gosh. Yeah, that I find that such an interesting, conversation once you start getting into that, what's the best and who's the most influential, and it's like such an impossible thing to discuss because influence is just like a snowball. Like it just
Completely.
continues, like bands just get wrapped in that snowball and it just keeps going down the hill. You could say
That's yeah,
the Beach Boys or the Beatles are the most influential, but then you're like, who influenced them? Chuck Berry, is he the most influential? I don't know. Muddy
and
Waters, are they the most influential? I don't know.
yeah, that's the thing. It all goes back. It
Mm,
starts with Robert Johnson and it goes forward.
yeah, 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 for sure. Um, what specifically would you say um, are some of like the influence that bands today or bands shortly after the Beach Boys, like what are some of the specific things that you can be like, this is what the Beach Boys influenced for music, um because I do think it's sometimes hard, like other than maybe like even the production stuff, like a lot of people reference the production of the Beatles and like that's like some of their biggest influence, but you look at the Beach Boys and some of the stuff they did production wise was also insanely groundbreaking.
Absolutely.
So it's hard to look at both of those bands and be like, this is for the Beatles, like this influence comes from the Beatles, this influence comes from the Beach Boys. But if you were to take a stab at that, what do you think the Beach Boys would be most known for that?
It's hard to say because, like, in terms of like production, the '60s were an amazing time because
Hmm.
all you had to work with was the room and the players.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah.
And those who got to be a whiz on the boards were able to work with the board as an instrument.
Yeah.
And the further you got into music, eventually computers came into play, and then keyboards took over. At that point, you lose some of the magic of like that touch that the '60s had.
Yeah.
So, like, in terms of a production standpoint, there aren't a lot of like discernibly, um, I would almost say popular bands inspired by the Beach Boys in terms of production. Because, like, I would say the bands that were inspired by the Beach Boys were the nerdy groups who were using a little bit of their influence, but blending in with what was happening at the same time. The
Mhm.
first Weezer album is a great
Mm.
example of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
They had chords that the Beach Boys would use, but they were also using chords from power metal bands
Mm.
and chunky, heavy riffs that came from
Yeah.
the metal scene.
Yeah.
But like, the song "Holiday," they do a bit of vocal interplay that the Beach Boys are known for, and
Hmm. Hmm.
so they wore a bit of their influence on their sleeve, and they would years later again too. But like the Beatles, they had so much more of an influence because I feel like their catalog is so much more better remembered
Hmm.
as a whole. Whereas with the
Sure.
Beach Boys, most people can't name most of their albums. They say Pet Sounds.
Yeah.
Or they say, "Oh, I got Endless Summer is the greatest hits album." Most
Hmm.
people aren't going to say, "Oh, Holland influenced me," or "Carl and
Hmm.
the Passions. Wow, I wrote a Grammy-winning album because of this."
Yeah.
Whereas, like, I heard Abbey Road for the first time and I got 8
Yeah.
Grammys.
Yeah.
That's it is what it is. So I
Hmm.
think the Beatles' reach is quote unquote more accessible. The Beach Boys having 4 and 5 part harmonies is extremely hard to
Yeah.
do and to write
Absolutely.
for,
Yeah.
and very few bands do it. But immediately following the Beach Boys not being popular, you had Graham Nash, David Crosby, and Stephen Stills,
Mm.
and sometimes Neil Young,
Mhm.
doing amazing harmonies with
Yeah.
CSNY. The
Mhm.
Eagles had
Yeah.
unbelievable harmonies.
Mhm.
Um, and there weren't too many harmony bands after that until like the boy groups of the '90s. But like,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I don't know. In terms of chords and stuff, the Beach Boys used a lot of weird jazz chords, and the Beatles had some too, but not as many. They were more blues based,
Mhm.
so their influences felt, I would say, easier and more I don't know, more widespread.
Mm,
Because also the Beatles sound can be heard in a lot of things. Whereas if you cover a Beach Boys song, it sounds like a Beach Boys song. It's like, oh, I
yeah,
know what you're doing. I know what you're
yeah,
doing. I know that move. You know.
yeah, yeah, totally, yeah.
So my long-winded answer, my Pete Townsend length answer for you is that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. It's almost like this is obviously oversimplifying it, but it's almost like, mainstream versus like kind of underground,
Oh, it is 100%.
there's lots
100%.
of great underground or relatively underground artists that kind of lie in the shadows, or like somehow some people call them like artists, or like
Yeah.
band, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're the artists that like aren't super mainstream, but like all of the current musicians and bands are like this guy or this girl or this band is what we listen to.
Oh, I
Um
mean, in terms of Beach Boys influence, there was a group called the Heavy Blinkers. I'm not sure if they're around anymore, but they were
mm,
massive Beach Boys nerds. You're
mm,
not gonna hear them on the radio. The
yeah.
Wondermints ended up being Brian's band.
Mm.
Um, so like that kind of stuff. The bands that weren't gonna be huge stars are the Beach Boys fans. Put it that way.
Nice. So
Yeah.
that's how you know the last nail in the coffin for your music careers. If you're a big Beach Boys fan,
It's like,
like
oh, you like the Beach
the
Boys and you make music? Oh,
oh
good luck
yeah,
getting
too
restaurants,
bad,
man.
buddy.
Yeah, that's it. You should like the Beatles. Yeah,
Yeah,
they wrote
yeah,
Sergeant Pepper.
yeah.
We know
How
that's the
about
better one. Yeah.
exactly. How
We
about
chose
you?
wrong.
Move over
Yeah.
here. Oh gosh, yeah, that's funny. Yeah. I'm interested too because you mentioned we're gonna shift gears here a little bit.
Yeah.
But you mentioned that when in the your record store thing that you play oldies or girly pop.
Yeah.
So let's move to girly pop.
Yeah.
What are you into right now?
Um, I really like Carly Rae Jepsen.
Mm,
Um, I don't know if Clairo would be considered girly pop. I like Clairo a lot.
yeah,
Um,
adjacent maybe.
yeah, Charlie, of course.
Mhm.
Like some Billie Eilish stuff. I like some of the Sabrina Carpenter songs. Um, I'm spacing right now. I have a tip. I like Twice, the K-pop group Twice. I like them a
Mhm.
lot.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but I've always liked girly pop. Even like in high school, I liked Natasha Bedingfield, and I liked
Mm.
Christina Aguilera and all those people back when I was a kid. I like that stuff too. So it's not like it's a recent thing. A lot of people say, "Oh, guy in his 30s, of course he likes Carly Rae Jepsen," but I've always been waving that flag. I think
Yeah.
it's needed, and I think
Mhm.
their lyrics have a lot to say, and I think the construction is interesting and how they build the song and the layers that you can listen to inside the song. Um, I don't think pop music is all just vapid, shallow crap. I think there's a lot of really fascinating people doing cool
Mhm.
things, and
Yeah.
pop means popular, so it doesn't necessarily mean top
Yeah.
40, but a lot of
Mhm.
people are hearing it. So yeah, I mean that's the kind of stuff I would definitely be bumping at the record store and pissing off the metalheads who come in and want to hear the heavy stuff.
Yeah, they're like, "Oh, shoot.
Yeah,
Giggins is working."
like this song's called "The Scientist" by Twice. Get used to it. But I play
Yeah.
it twice. Yeah.
This is, I find the K-pop, like, phenomena that's happening right now so interesting.
Mm,
It's I think it's really cool when you have this intersection like of music from obviously different culture, different region, coming into the mainstream of different places. Obviously, the U.S. isn't the only place that has great, you know what I mean. But it's kind of become like if you make it in the U.S., you've made it everywhere. Like
it's the world
it's
hub.
kind of been like that. At one
Yeah.
point, Europe was kind of that, like
Yeah.
but now and the Beatles probably being that very reason. If at a certain time that was where the music mecca was. Now it seems like this is the US. So not trying to be ethnocentric or anything. I just think that's just how it is. Don't want to step on any feet, but I do think it's really cool to see these genres coming in. Like obviously we've been seeing it for a while, with like other, we've got all kinds of other influences. Hip hop is, we've got a whole lot of influence from Europe, Africa, and then, pop. We've got a whole lot of influence from, South America and all of that stuff.
Yeah,
So I think it's really cool that we're seeing this kind of K-pop rise.
yeah.
Um, do you feel like that's something like? Do you feel like that's something that's going to infuse music for a long time? Do you think that this is some sort of like just a fad that's like coming and going?
No, I think it's gonna be around for a while, and I think it's gonna have an impact, like a more global impact, and
Mm,
I think it's gonna make a lot of people, music fans who don't necessarily go out of their country for music, to understand that there's so much more out there than what we have here in
mm,
America,
yeah,
and in non-English speaking countries, you know.
yeah, yeah,
But it's already had an effect with. There's a group called Cat's Eye, and
mhm,
they're a K-pop group, but I would say most of them are English or American. You know, they are or Indian. They're from all over the world, and it's,
interesting.
for K-pop originally was only like, South Korean,
Mhm,
and it's grown a lot in the last handful of years. And I'm not the expert on it. I don't know everything, but just from
yeah,
my own knowledge of understanding it and living with it for a while, um, it's fascinating to see the changes in it, because it was one thing for so long, and now it's
yeah,
changing. And I'm
yeah,
not sure if that's the world looking at K-pop, or if K-pop looking at the world, or vice versa,
mm,
or both.
mm,
But
yeah,
I like that it's becoming more of a mainstream thing, and even groups like Blackpink have a massive appeal in America, and their solo
yeah,
records have done really. Rosie's record does really well. She's,
yeah,
APT, and
mhm,
um I can't think of her other song right now, but those songs have been humongous hits, and they're still in
mhm,
the top 20. They've been up for 6 months.
yeah, it's
So, like,
crazy. Yeah,
it's great to see that, kids or anybody's appreciating this music, but, yeah,
mhm,
anytime you can listen to music from a different country, from people who aren't you, I think
mhm,
you understand music. You get to appreciate music better. So,
yeah,
I like seeing where it's going, and I hope more comes from different countries, and infiltrates America and our ears, because there's just so much out there, man. It's like,
yeah,
can't just be the country radio station. Like, come on.
yeah, yeah,
How
yeah,
boring. And no
yeah,
no no offense to country, but
yeah,
come on.
yeah. It's true. Yeah, there definitely is like this. I don't know. I just think it's so cool when, like, and again, it's like, I don't know. There's all kinds of things that people will say, and like you can kind of step on people's toes when you're talking about certain genres. And if you're like a big fan of some, like, if you're talking a lot about hip hop, I know that some people can get really negative, around like the culture, and if you don't fit into the culture. But I do like. I just feel like I just love when music kind of takes all kinds of influence and just puts it into something that's amazing. And I think you're seeing that across all genres. Unfortunately, you brought up country. Unfortunately for country, I cannot stand the trap country that's like happening. It's like it's so horrible to my ears. But, I know that there's lots of people that like it. So I just I'm not a fan of it. But
Grows every day, man. It grows every day.
it's crazy. But yeah, I think it's really cool, really interesting to kind of see K-pop and how it is kind of just, yeah, it's taking things over really. You're seeing all kinds of, collabs with artists, and that you never really would have thought would happen. And yeah, and then you've got like all kinds of the different kind of groups that aren't like K-pop. Like I guess I'm not familiar enough with the different, countries in Asia, and what their version of like a K-pop would be. But like you've got all kinds of that music now becoming popular. I'm sure most people here in the US would just lump it all as K-pop because it's easier, and we can be very ignorant. But but I don't know. It's just so cool. It's so cool to see that. And then it just begs the question of like, what's the next genre that's going to kind of creep in to influence? Um,
I don't
yeah,
know.
it's
It's I like seeing it happen.
yeah,
I mean, like, most of the Blackpink members, when their records have come out, have been top 10 hits in America,
mm-hmm,
and it's
mm-hmm,
that's gotta be a far out feeling, to be from a different country, knowing your album has
yeah,
done so well somewhere else. It's gotta be
yeah,
a trip.
yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely. And, that's kinda like, is it I think it's Celine Dion. Her, like she was huge in China for a long time, like, just,
Yeah,
like which is so crazy. But,
yeah,
yeah, like, music, I don't know, there's just something about music that when people attach to it, it's just, like, you attach your meaning to it. Like, obviously, as an artist, you put something out there that you've put a lot of thought and effort and, emotion and all that stuff into it.
yeah.
But it's just really cool, I'm sure, like you said, when artists like realize like, wow, people really like this. Like people are actually taking what we've created, which is part of ourselves, and they like it. They want it. They want to hear it. I'm
Yeah,
sure
it's a
it's
part of their
yeah.
life now. Yeah.
As somebody that has never ever experienced that, I'm sure it's amazing.
It must be great.
Yeah, it must be so cool. Um, I kind of wanted to talk about maybe like a little bit of the stuff that you're doing outside of your own channel. You've got a bunch of stuff going. You've got needle drop stuff that you're doing constantly, which is super cool.
Mhm.
You have like a TV show that is in the works. Is this correct?
Kinda.
Kind of.
Like, um, yeah, we filmed the pilot at the record store for a TV
Okay.
show. Um, it was kinda like a mixture of, like an Antiques Roadshow meets, like, Pawn Stars, American Pickers, like, that kinda style of
Okay.
show.
Yeah.
Um, and it went really well, and, we've been farming it around to different, streamers and TV channels.
Mm,
I haven't had an update in a while, actually, about it. We filmed it I think like 2 years ago now.
mm.
If it did get picked up, like, in that promo, I had long hair and a beard, so I don't look
You're
like
gonna
that
have
guy, so we'd have to
you're gonna
start
have
over
some
again.
growing of your facial
Right,
hair
yeah,
to
I gotta catch up.
do.
It was one of my hippie moments, but,
Nice.
yeah, it was fun. It was fun to make. It was cool to have all the big lights there, the camera crew, and it was a trip. It was far out, but,
Mhm,
no real updates on it for now,
mhm.
unfortunately. Maybe
That's
someday.
kind of that sounds like a cool concept.
I'd
Yeah.
watch it.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know why nobody's picking it up. It's gonna be the best show ever.
I
Yeah,
think it'd be cool. I mean, vinyl's hot. People like watching
I know.
collecting videos, so why not,
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be really cool. I'm sure, like, I don't know. I'm sure there's some hesitancy just around like, is there a big enough audience? I think there's probably more of an audience than some people realize. Like,
I think so.
in the same way that like Antiques Roadshow, like not all the people that watched that were antiquers. A lot of people were just like, "What is gonna come in next? Like this
Yeah,
is
like, what
so
is this
cool!"
show?
Like,
Yeah.
like I don't care about antiques, but if I see this desk that's worth $500,000, like that's just a cool thing to see. Like,
Well, that's American Pickers was the same way. It's
yeah,
like,
exactly.
finding a bunch of old crap in someone's house is cool, but it's more about the
Yeah,
stories. It's more about who owned this thing or, their
exactly.
grandparents' candy store. It's like that's what
Hmm.
makes the show personable, and that's
Hmm.
kinda how we approached it too. We were like, where did this record come from? Like, why is
Hmm.
someone's name written on it? Whose story is this? It's
Yeah,
we
totally.
went to the nerdy stuff like that too, but, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe someday. I'd love to
Nice.
see it come out. It was really fun to put together
Yeah,
or be a part of, I should say.
that would be really cool. For you, like obviously you're co-manager at a record shop. You've obviously got lots of vinyl behind you. What is that to you? Like what's the why do you love collecting vinyl?
Well, I mean, I grew up with records when I was a kid.
Mm.
We didn't have a CD player until I was about 5 or 6 or something, so I only had records before that, but, so for me, it's always been a part of my life. It was never like, "Oh, what are these cool plastic discs I can
Yeah.
put these," it was never that. It was always there,
Hmm.
and, in the early 2000s, very few stores had records. Like Hot Topic used to sell vinyl in those days, and I got all the
Yeah.
Weezer albums back for like $12. They were super cheap.
Yeah, I know.
Um, now they're like $35 each, but
Yeah.
um, I like collecting them because I like preserving parts of the past that will never happen ever again,
Mm.
and I like holding on to something and looking at the cool covers, and maybe they come with a poster. But
Mhm.
I like being a part of the experience. You flip the record over, you put the needle down, you get to
Yeah.
watch it spin in the grooves, and magically music comes out.
Mhm.
It's a trip, and it's just cool to look around and see them all. Like I got some here that I'm in front of me. There's another 1,000 in front of me as well.
Mhm.
Um, it's just cool because you imagine someone buying this record in 1968 and putting it on their turntable for the first
Yeah.
time, and it's like,
Mhm.
where did this record go after that? What's its story? Whose basement was it in? Was it loved
Mhm.
for the last 40 years, or was it forgotten? Then I found it. Now I'm the caretaker of it. But
Sure.
this particular shelf is all new records that I bought,
Hmm.
new.
Yeah.
Some box
Nice.
sets and stuff. But
Yeah.
it's just fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing for me. I love owning physical media. I love supporting the artist because if you play an album on streaming, people don't make
Mhm.
money on streaming unless you're famous.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Totally.
if you buy the record for $30, they get actual money from that.
Yeah.
So,
Totally.
and I
Yeah.
want to support the artist to keep making music that I want to hear.
Yeah. For
But
sure.
yeah, I mean, I think collecting is just some sort of weird humane instinct to just hoard something. But thankfully, mine is records and not like anything illicit. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's just fun to look at them and oh cool, I can put this on or I can trade it with somebody or bring it to the store or
Yeah.
you know
Totally.
some things go out of print and
Mm.
then they
Mhm.
never get made
Yeah.
ever again. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's a nerdy thing, but it's a cool thing. So do
Yeah.
you collect
Well,
records too?
I have some records. I definitely don't collect at this point. I
Yeah,
feel like I want to though, because for part of I think the biggest thing for me is the support of the artist. Like I think like obviously when you're going to like thrift stores and buy or you're like going into record shops and buying like old records that
yeah,
have, been purchased before, that's not really the same thing and that's cool. Like obviously if you've got a record collection, then you probably just want, the music you like as well, even if it's old music. But like I just think such a cool way to support an artist. The only issue being that not every artist will put out a vinyl, you know what I mean, like it's and I think that's kind of like there part of that is almost like the exclusivity is almost kind of alluring as well. Like you think about how much music is put out on Spotify every
yes,
day because it's so easy. Like
yeah,
anybody can put music on Spotify. It can be horrible or it can be amazing. Like there's such a swath in between. With
yeah,
records, it's like there's so much more risk involved and money involved to put it on a record that like especially today now, it's like you're only going to be getting records of people that, are are relatively able to do that. But even
yeah,
even back then when that was really the only medium other than radio that you could like purchase stuff, still it
yeah.
was like it was a big deal to put something on a record. Like it was not everybody
I
did it.
imagine so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it must be a trip to be able to hold a record and see your name on it. It's got to be, yeah,
Yeah.
you made this, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, it's so cool, and like things are. I think because of the popularity of people wanting vinyl and getting back into it, like there are avenues for smaller artists that wouldn't be able to meet factory minimums to like
Yeah,
you can do like one offs and stuff. Like
yeah,
you can do that now. It obviously is going to cost a lot, but like if you really are like I want to just have something, like you could do that. But
yeah,
yeah, I don't know. I think the appeal is just like supporting artists in a way, like you said, especially if they're kind of smaller indie artists that you're just like, hey, I have your record or CDs. Like it's so funny how all that stuff is coming back, like cassettes and CDs, and like
cassettes are huge now. I mean,
they
I
are
still
huge.
play CDs. I
Yeah,
whatever format I can buy something on, I'll do it if I can. Like
yeah,
space is always an issue, but
yeah,
um,
totally. Do
yeah,
you think the 8 track is ever going to come back?
it has in small bits and pieces over the last couple of years. Like there's a very tiny market of 8-track diehards.
That's crazy.
Same with reel to reel. They actually make new reel to reel albums,
What?
which is
That's wild.
extremely. They're so expensive, but
Yeah, that's
yeah, but no,
wild.
the 8-track will never have the appeal that a cassette or a CD has ever. 8-tracks sucked when they were new, so I mean,
It's so true. Yeah,
and I love 8-tracks, but they are
yeah.
the dumbest technology that was ever made. Oh, there's no eject, but you just pull the tape out. That's dumb. Okay, yeah.
It's
Why do
so
they sound
funny.
bad? Oh no.
It's like such a funny like my grandmother obviously had so many 8 tracks
Oh no way.
and we like so foolishly, this was probably like 15 years ago, before all of this stuff started coming back in a big way. I'm pretty sure we just foolishly like threw them out when we were like like what I mean? It's like, and it's so sad because now people would love to have those. Like I wouldn't care really necessarily. She had a lot of Fats Domino. That was like I don't. She loved Fats Domino. I don't know. I don't know.
He was great.
He was great.
I mean,
Yeah.
with 8 tracks too, there's actually a lot of 8 track specific versions of albums like Sergeant
Mm,
Pepper. There's
mm.
a longer version of the reprise at the end
Really?
to
I
fill
had
in
no
time
idea.
on the tape. Um,
Oh.
I think Animals by Pink Floyd or The Wall. It was Animals has something different on it as well. So 8 tracks are highly collectible for the
Yes.
slight differences because
Yeah, that's crazy. So those would probably be worth so much money at
oh,
this point.
absolutely.
That's
Yeah, I remember
crazy.
hearing Pepper on 8 track for the first time and being like, "Well, that's cool." I take a look at
Yeah. Wow, that's so cool. I had no idea. That
yeah,
yeah. Wow.
it's
That, now
always
I'm
worth
gonna go
keeping.
out and buy an 8-track player. Why
Yes,
not?
they're fun.
But again, the worst technology ever. It's kind of like the floppy disk for a computer. It's like that's never going to come back. You'll have
Oh,
people that just like collect old floppy disks because like it's an antique thing, but it's
yeah.
like they're never going to, in the same way that vinyl is coming back and people actually want to listen to it. They're never going to be like, oh sweet, like this technology is coming back and I can play this game on a flop. Well, first of all, you couldn't play anything on a floppy disk.
No,
I can
nothing.
look at this one small document on this floppy disk.
Yeah, it could hold maybe half a song. I mean, they were so stupidly I mean, for all the kids who grew up in the '90s, playing Oregon Trail on a floppy disk, that was like the thing. You put in the
Yeah,
big, it was a thing.
yeah.
Those days are
Oh,
gone, man. They'll never come
those
back.
days are gone. Luckily for us, those days are gone.
Yeah, easily. Yes.
Oh gosh, yeah. And then like also with like the 8-track, like didn't you also blow into it similar to like the Nintendo games? Like if it was being weird, weren't you like and like stick it back
You
in?
could, because the tape was exposed,
Yeah, I feel like I
and there was no
remember.
yeah.
That's
Very
so
little
funny.
cases for them either. Like some people
Yeah,
had like slip cases you could put them in,
yeah,
but like there was no shell. Like a cassette tape goes back into a cassette, the shell.
yeah, yeah,
H
yeah.
actually just threw it in the back seat and put the new one in. Like you just kept driving. Like it was,
Yeah, it's so
they
funny.
got so toasted, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have 8 tracks in the record
Oh
store?
yeah. I've got a. I have not as many as I used to. I had a bunch
Mm,
more, but I just kept the ones I knew I would love: the Beach Boys, Beatles, the
mm.
Who, that kind of stuff. Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
Um, and I had
Super
some
cool.
blank ones too, and I'm like, I'm never gonna make a mix. I'm never gonna make an 8 track mix from Spotify. Like,
That would
I'm
be
never
so
gonna do it.
funny to try
Oh,
though.
you can do it. Absolutely, you can do it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
that would just be so like that would be so like so funny just to like I don't know, have some buddies over and just be like, "Hey, you want to listen to some music?" And just put like the 8
yeah.
track in and
You ever
it's like
hear
Charlie
Kendrick on an 8
XCX's
track?
Brat on
Yeah.
it or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah, here's
Oh,
Chromacopia on 8
yeah.
track. Yeah.
Girl Magovia, that'd be so good.
It'd be awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
here's not like us on 8-track.
Yeah.
You want to bump
Here's
it?
not. Yeah.
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 Oh, frig. Oh man, yeah, that'd be hilarious.
Yeah.
So funny. Yeah, I'm still like imagining when I was looking at my grandmother's, like she had a case for it. Like it was like a suitcase. Like it
You're
was
right.
like with slots in it.
Yep.
So she had a case for them.
Yep.
And I like opened them and I was like, who is Fats Domino? And why are there like 20 of these in here? And like and then the other ones were like gospel artists that I've never heard of. You
Oh,
know what I
wow.
mean? So I was like, anyway, it is sad that you kind of, I don't know, get rid of some of that stuff because it's all coming back, but
You
um
don't know.
you
I
never
mean, like
know.
in the '90s, everyone gave their records away. Who knew?
So crazy.
CDs came
Yeah.
out. That was
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. It's like VHS is coming back too. Like I don't know, all that
Huge.
stuff. All that stuff is just it's coming back and in a real way and everybody's regretting in the same way that everybody that collect Pokemon cards are regretting just like folding them in half or like I don't
Oh,
know, throwing them in the trash. It's like, are you kidding me?
keep it in
Do you,
your
do you know how
pockets.
many Charizards I had? I could buy a house.
Put your kids through college. Yeah.
Yeah, seriously. Oh man. Give me your 5 favorite Beach Boys songs.
Ugh. Um, so I had a list in my head before, and it's already changed. Um,
Hey, that's fine.
my number one song, I don't tell anybody that, so I'm keeping that one to myself. But
Oh, okay.
um,
So we're
I
gonna have
will.
a list of four, five, four, three, two.
I'll give you five, and then my real one is my S tier one that no one will know. Um,
Okay. Hey, you know
so
what? I like this secrecy.
you have to
It's
have a little mystery, man. It keeps the
Yeah,
interest going. You can't give
that's
it
per.
all away.
Does your fiance know what your number one is?
Oh, she knows. Yeah, she knows
Okay.
everything about me. Yeah, she's the only
Mhm.
one.
So she knows your real name.
Oh, yeah. I hope so. We're getting married. And she's marrying
God.
Mr. Giggins. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, it's got a good ring to it.
Yeah, there you go.
Um, all right, I'm gonna throw in. I'm gonna say "Busy Doing Nothing" from the Friends album.
Mhm.
I'm gonna say "Darlin'" from the Wild Honey album. Oh, did the balloons come up for you too just there?
Yeah, that was awesome.
That's it's an iMac thing.
That's
Yeah, if you
so
do like
funny.
peace signs and stuff, balloons pop up. Oh,
I
there you
didn't
go.
think
Okay.
that I didn't like I thought that was just like a FaceTime thing though. Like I didn't think it
No,
would work. The
thumbs
thumbs
up
up,
should be the
that's
thumbs up. There it
yeah.
is. Yep.
That's
And
so
then
funny.
this should be like a firework thing. Oh, it's confetti. Okay,
Confetti.
never mind. Yeah.
That is so funny.
All right.
I knew that just from FaceTiming people, but I honestly thought it was just like within like I didn't think it would translate into like other softwares. Like
I
that's hilarious.
I always forget that it works on my computer too. But
That's so funny. I love it. Hey, you know what? The confetti is for whatever this next song was for. Is gonna be it.
this okay. My third song. So we got "Darlin'," we got "Busy Doing Nothing." I'm gonna throw in um "Slip On Through" from the Sunflower album. I'm gonna throw on um "The Night Was So Young" from the Beach Boys' "Love You." And I'm gonna do an oddball pick with um what the hell's it "Where I Belong" from the 1985 self-titled album. So some weird choices, but
Hey, that
if you ask for
that's how you
tomorrow, all different
yeah, it'll
songs.
be different.
Yeah,
That's how you know you're a true Beach Boys fan. I'm horrible with song names, so that is one thing. But
yeah.
I knew three of those five.
Oh,
The other
nice.
two, the other two, I'm like, I've probably heard of it because I have listened to that album. I know for sure, but whether or
Yeah,
not, anyway, I'm gonna have to go and do some re-listening
play the
because
Sunflower
I'm
album. It'll blow your
yeah.
mind.
I've heard the
Excellent.
Sunflower album maybe only once.
Yeah,
And because there was a time when I was in high school that I was like, it would be really cool if I was just the guy that was into like old music. Like I just decided like, yeah, so you're the embodiment of that. And I was like, I want to get there. So
yeah.
I literally would go, and this is back in like LimeWire days, and I hope,
Oh
the
God.
CIA is not listening to me, but when you would just like like you'd search like, I don't know, like whole discography, the Who whole
Yeah.
discography, and then you just download the whole thing. It's like 6 gigabytes of music, and you're like, I guess I know what I'm doing for the next 2 weeks,
Yep.
and just listening to it. And some of that stuff I remember. Some of that stuff it's just like, what I mean. When you
There's
listen to
so much
something
out there.
once, it's like it's in and out.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's a good list.
Thanks,
At
man.
least the three that I know, that's a good list. All right. Well, now the competition. What about your five favorite Beatles songs?
My favorite Beatles songs. I've just seen a face from Rubber Soul. Well,
Mm,
American Rubber Soul. That's my favorite one. So
mm.
I know it's on Help. American Rubber Soul.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Come on.
Um, I'm gonna do Hey Bulldog off the Yellow Submarine album.
Yes.
I'm
Nice.
gonna do um, I Want You. She's So Heavy from Abbey Road.
Yeah.
It's a rocker.
Man, that would probably be in my top five for sure.
Oh,
It's
freaking
so
good,
good.
man.
Yeah.
I want to pick something off Here, There, and Everywhere from Revolver.
Mm,
That's a Beach Boy song. Great harmonies.
yeah. They have
Um,
great harmonies.
and then maybe like
Let it be. Obviously.
you throw Let It Be in there.
I
It's
was
not mine.
I was just trying to get the trolls after you.
Oh god.
My
But it is a
favorite.
great song,
It is
but
a
it's
great
not.
song.
I throw in something way different, like, I love Nowhere Man or no, Rain. I'll put Rain in there. Rain's
Hmm.
a great one. There you go. There's some of those.
Hey, those are great. Those are all great. I'm definitely
Yeah.
much more familiar with the Beatles catalog than I am with the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that you when you're like giving your top five and somebody puts "Let It Be," not that that's not a great song. It's it's fine, but that's when people start coming after you. They're like, "You're
I
not a
know.
real fan."
Yeah.
If "Let It
Oh,
Be"
She
is in your
Loves You
top
is my
five,
favorite song, yeah.
yeah, it's anyway, yeah, it's like, whoa, what else do you like? Yellow Submarine, is that in your top five
The
too?
The Beatles 1 is my favorite album by them, yeah.
Oh gosh. Well, awesome. I'm super glad that you came on. We can kind of wrap up here. It's been a lot of fun talking about a lot of things that I don't know about. The Beach Boys. I haven't had a conversation like that about the Beach Boys, but I'm grateful to have had it for sure.
Honored, man. Yeah.
Um, yeah, appreciate you coming on. We'd love to have you back on sometime. That'd be a lot of fun. Maybe once your TV show hits the air.
So 30 years from now, great.
30 years. Yeah. When they're like, yeah, I don't even know at that point what they would have, what kind of technology they'd have that they'd
Yeah,
be like,
for real.
whoa, like look at this ancient technology, the vinyl. We
We'll
just
we'll have
have
that
our neural links
link.
directly into our mind. Music is just playing at all times. I don't know.
We'll have that before GTA 6.
Yeah, seriously. Oh gosh, you gotta love all those memes and stuff that
Right.
come out. That's
Keep us
like
going.
lately. I think lately the ones that I love. This is such a tangent, but lately the ones that I love are like, what's more expensive than the budget of or what's less expensive than the budget of GTA 6? And like they list all these things. They're like,
NASA. Yeah.
yeah, NASA. They're like, all of Donald Trump's properties. Like it's just like they go through all these things. It's like, LeBron James is worth less. Like, it's so funny. And then you're like, how much? Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. Don't make their
Because
money back. Come on. Um, yeah, but it was a lot of fun. I appreciate you coming on. And if you guys don't already follow Giggins, first of all, you got to, but he's on YouTube, he's on Instagram, he's on TikTok as well. I'm sure you'll see his face if you're watching some needle drop stuff as well. The occasional reviews, and then also you're on like every Music Friday, right?
yeah, I'm on every New
Yeah.
Music Friday. I'm the co-host with Anthony, and
Mm,
I edit a ton of his social media videos, and
man, the
I came up
grind.
with well, it's my main job is to work with him. That's my main
Yeah,
job, and but yeah, I came up with the videos where I'm like, "Hey, Anthony, pick 3 albums from your collection for this."
I
I've
love
been
those. Yeah,
that was me.
that's
Um,
awesome.
but I edit a bunch of his stuff. It's just been a blast working with him again.
Mm,
I've been working
hmm
with him for a couple of years now, and it's been great to just hang out with him and do his thing. I'm so proud of him. We
Yeah,
did the radio show in college together, and
man,
I
it's
wrote for his
crazy.
original Needle Drop blog back in the day,
Sheesh.
and it's watching it grow over the last
Yeah.
I don't know 15 years or something. It's been just insane. Yeah,
Mm,
it's really cool. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
stoked for him.
Well, he's like one of the biggest voices as a music critic in the
He's the guy.
space. Yeah.
He's the
Like
guy.
other than like, you know, formal publications, like he's the one that people go to. There's
Yeah,
nobody
he's the one.
bigger.
He's the reason why there are formal publications or former publications because
Yeah.
yeah, people want to
Yeah.
watch. They don't want to read. Yeah,
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, totally.
yeah,
It's crazy. It's
yep.
it's so cool. Yeah. Yeah, well, again, we're landing the plane here. This is taking a little bit, but it's fine, We just love it.
Outstanding.
But
Feels
yeah,
good. Good.
we'll have you back on sometime soon, I'm sure. And yeah, I'm looking forward to just keeping up with all the stuff you do because you've got some great content out there.
Thanks, man. You do too. Thank you so much for having me on. It was
Yeah,
so
of
much fun
course.
chatting about stuff. And for everybody watching this, if I'm sharing it on my thing, go follow B-Side. Go follow B-Side. Good
Thank you. I
stuff coming.
appreciate that. I appreciate that. Cool. All right. Well, we'll see you guys next week. You'll have a new episode and a new guest. All right. Peace.